Things you should know before you move to Australia. In case you're considering moving to Australia, there are things about existence in the land down under that we feel you should think about. Aussie culture is far beyond lager, grills and sweltering climate, despite the fact that there is likewise a great deal of that. We're discussing a place that is known for certified assortment, where you can ski and surf around the same time. Everything from the natural life to the climate is brilliant, energizing and marginally perilous. Australia is where no two individuals will have same experience, except if they follow each other round. Allow us to direct you through every one of the basics before your enormous move to Oz. 1. It is totally gigantic. Australia estimates in excess of 3 million square miles. To place this into viewpoint, it is about the size of Europe. Indeed, truly. In the event that you put a guide of Australia over a guide of Europe, it practically covers the entire thing. The distance among Portugal and Ukraine is not exactly the distance among Perth and Sydney. Any reasonable person would agree you need a nice inventory of time and energy to see the entire country. Look at the perfect guide. 2. The climate shifts a ton. Individuals, not you, clearly, think Australian climate as a similar all-finished, warm, bright climate all year long in each edge of the country. This is essentially not the situation. At the point when it's mid-year in the south, it's ordinarily wet season in the north. Brisbane is for the most part honored with a significant heat and humidity, while Melbourne is known for having 4 seasons in a single day. It even snows such a great amount in certain pieces of the country that you can really ski there. We examine this somewhat later. It's exceptionally energizing. 3. Be careful with the sun. At the point when sun sparkles in Australia, it truly sparkles. Summer temperatures in certain regions can be totally burning, at times above and beyond 40 degrees Celsius, and they're relied upon to arrive at 50 degrees Celsius by 2040. Late warmth waves in Sydney have softened landing area streets and unfortunately murdered many infant bats. Notwithstanding, it's not simply the warmth that is hazardous. We people need the Earth's ozone layer to shield us from the sun's hurtful UV beams. However, the ozone layer straightforwardly above Australia is bizarrely flimsy. This makes the Aussie sun particularly amazing, which is the reason the 1980s slip slop slap crusade was made. In the event that you need to remain safe, slip on a shirt, slop on some sun cream and slap on a cap. What's more, it must be in a specific order. 4. There are bushfires. At the point when the conditions are correct, tremendous pieces of country Australia can illuminate on fire. Lamentably, conditions are correct rather regularly. Consistently, the nation encounters a normal of more than 50,000 bushfires. In the event that temperatures are high and winds are solid, Australia's dry vegetation offers ideal fuel for a fire. Everything necessary is for something to begin it, for example, a lightning storm or a bushfire pyromaniac. These individuals are in reality normal. From that point forward, the harm can be pulverizing, obliterating structures, natural life and once in a while slaughtering individuals. Everything you can manage is to ensure there isn't a lot of common trash around your home, so clearing fallen leaves and branches is an absolute necessity. Carry your rake with you when you move. 5. You have great medical services choices. Somewhat like grills, medical services is likewise free in Australia. It's called Medicare, and you can utilize it as long as you have perpetual residency. There has additionally been a progression of beautiful arrangements among Australia and a couple of different nations, like the UK and New Zealand, which means transitory guests likewise approach Medicare. In any case, it's insightful to consider private clinical cover for when you're out there. That is the reason we've collaborated with Cigna for private clinical protection in Australia. With 4 degrees of yearly cover to browse and additional modules for greater adaptability, Cigna will figure you out with an arrangement that suits your necessities. Begin fabricating a modified arrangement with a free statement to secure your most significant resources, you and your family. 6. Australian ski occasions are a thing. There's a spot called the Australian Alps and it gets more snowfall than Switzerland. This is a reality that Aussies love to tell individuals, so recall this one and you can bother them by definitely knowing it. At the point when they begin to talk, simply interfere with them and say, I definitely realized that. Turning into an acknowledged individual from your new Australian people group will be vital. The vast majority of the nation's ski areas are in the southeast, for example, the Perisher Resort. This is arranged on the snowy mountains, between the Snowy River and the Snowy Plain. We're not kidding, those are their genuine names. Nonetheless, the Aussie snow levels are slowly falling, so soon these names will simply be truly senseless. 7. Smoking costs a bomb. The Australian government truly don't need their residents to smoke, so they've made it incredibly costly. Smokers as of now pay USD 70 cents of expense per cigarette, which is one of the greatest tobacco obligations on the planet. It's conjectured to increment, as well. Every September until 2020, the expense rate will increment by 12.5%, in the end making a bunch of cigarettes cost around USD $40. It's working, as well, with the grown-up smoking rate in Australia having nearly split since 1980. Deutsche Bank recorded Melbourne and Sydney as the world's two most costly urban areas for purchasing a bunch of cigarettes, with costs around USD $20. In case you're moving to Australia with a smoking propensity, it very well may be an ideal opportunity to kick the cigs. 8. Stay on the left. A great many people realize that Aussies drive on the left, yet did you realize that they additionally stroll on the left? It seems like a significant reasonable framework, so we're astonished that more nations haven't received it. In the UK, for instance, the deliberate street framework self-destructs once you're on the asphalt. You can stroll on whatever side you need. However, in Australia there are rules to follow when you're walking, say thanks to God. Except if you're overwhelming on an elevator, keep left. It is anything but a wrongdoing to stroll on the right, however individuals will believe you're a nitwit. 9. Jaywalking is a wrongdoing. You can't simply go across the street at whatever point you feel like it, except if you need to spend the remainder of your life chilling in an Aussie jail cell. We're kidding, the punishment is in reality a fine of AUD $70, yet it's as yet something to be careful about. Somewhere in the range of 2014 and 2017, more than 10,000 New South Wales walkers were fined for jaywalking. The standards are quite straightforward. You should utilize an assigned intersection point, for example, a zebra or pelican crossing. On the off chance that you can't see one, stroll for a significant distance until you can. You've most likely seen at this point that Australia's excessively laid-back standing doesn't actually apply to strolling. Assuming you're not going to do it appropriately, you should likely remain at home. 10. There's a whole other world to life than urban areas. Practically 90% of Australians live in urban communities, so it bodes well that they get the majority of the consideration. In case you're approached to consider places in Australia, Sydney and Melbourne will undoubtedly be your first ideas. Not any longer. Sometime later, you'll say Uluru or Kata Juta and intrigue the damnation out of whoever you're conversing with. There are some truly astounding spots in Australia once you move away from the urban areas, not least the 500-plus public parks. Wilson's Promontory, the Blue Mountains and Boojamala are for the most part quietly sitting tight for your visit. You'll be away from the aircon for a day, yet you can simply bring one of those little handheld fans. 11. Try not to stress over the untamed life. It's very regular to accept that Australia is loaded with creatures that are out to get you. This is a generalization about Oz that never disappears. Notwithstanding, your time would be better spent agonizing over different things, similar to burn from the sun and bushfires. There are unquestionably perilous animals the nation over, however the measurements make for loosening up perusing. Initially, there are just two types of dangerous creepy crawly in Australia and there is antidote toxin for the two of them. No Aussie has passed on from a creepy crawly chomp since 1979. Stingrays have just at any point murdered two individuals in Australia, one of them was Steve Irwin. By and large, there is just a single unwarranted deadly shark assault every year. On the off chance that these measurements aren't calming enough, there are safeguards you can take once you're in Australia, like always failing to go in the ocean. 12. Do stress over the jaybirds. For around a month and a half every spring, the jaybirds are out to get you. We're totally serious, these birds get too forceful and will plunge down on any clueless passerby or cyclist. Regardless of whether you're suspecting, you're most likely damned. There's really a site called Magpie Alert which gives a live guide of all jaybird assault areas in Australia. It seems like a helpful method of knowing which roads to maintain a strategic distance from, yet it will presumably make you need to remain inside. Male jaybirds target individuals from up to 80 meters away and afterward plunge bomb them from the sky. It sounds amusing, however their noses can be really agonizing. The best guidance for cyclists is to join link ties or googly eyes to their caps, which makes them look silly. People on foot are urged to convey a stick, however they shouldn't swing excessively hard. Jaybirds have been in insured animal categories in Australia since 1992. 13. Kangaroos are not all that extraordinary. The kangaroo is a symbol of Australia, so you may anticipate that it should be treated with some exceptional inclination. They're so abnormal and fun, all things considered. Also, joeys are one of the cutest child warm-blooded animals you'll at any point see. Nonetheless, Australia's relationship with its kangaroos is very confounded. With almost 50 million of them bouncing through the outback, their impact on the environment can be quite harming. Ranchers frequently see their fields ate up by kangaroos. Furthermore, these creatures cause ordinary accidents on the streets by haphazardly jumping before vehicles. Therefore, the Aussies perform kangaroo separates consistently, which is consistently a dubious issue. Kangaroos likewise highlight quite vigorously on menus around Australia, with wieners, kanga bangers, being a public top choice. In case you will be a famous Australian creature, perhaps it's smarter to be a koala. 14. The Aussies love their meat. As a matter of fact, being any sort of creature in Australia is presumably an impractical notion, except if you taste terrible. Australians devour more meat than some other country on the planet, eating through almost 93 kilograms per individual every year. This detail is quite inane until you hear that the worldwide normal is around 30 kilograms. Meat and chicken are without a doubt the most famous, yet you can likewise discover emu, crocodile, possum and, obviously, kangaroo. We plan to poke a fun at veggie lovers struggling over yonder. However, we likewise discovered that Australia positions 10th on the planet for number of vegans as a level of populace, 5.5%. So we're not quite certain what to say. 15. Grills are a privilege. The grill culture is so essential to Australians that there are free grill stations specced around parks the nation over. The public authority has made them so accessible that there's just no reason not to have one. The grills are mutual offices, so it's an incredible method to become more acquainted with different families while you sit tight for them to complete their cooking. You can likewise discover them on seashores, so you can at last satisfy your Australian dream of a grill on the seashore. Simply don't say, toss another shrimp on the barbie. In a real sense no one will chuckle and they may toss you on all things being equal. 16. Vegemite is life. We're shocked Vegemite hasn't showed up on Australia's public banner. This unpleasant, dark glue is an indispensable piece of any commonplace Aussie's life, supposedly found in 90% of all families in Oz. Vegemite was developed in 1922 as a swap for Britain's Marmite, albeit the two are somewhat extraordinary. Marmite is chomped all the more runny, sweet and gentle, so in the event that you as of now disdain Marmite, you will loathe Vegemite. Try not to depend on getting citizenship however. Individuals, liars, say that the last phase of an Australian citizenship test is eating a spoonful of Vegemite without scowling. 17. As are Tim Tams. Each country needs their public bread roll and in Australia it's the Tim Tam. While they're not as regular as containers of Vegemite, they're still gigantically famous. One in each 2 Australian families is said to contain a case of Tim Tams. Indeed, more Tim Tams are eaten per capita than some other roll on the planet, as per the National Museum of Australia, and they're not one-sided or anything. In the last moment of you perusing this article, a manufacturing plant in New South Wales has produced in excess of 3,000 Tim Tams. Your new home in Australia will not be finished until you've stuffed the cabinets with Vegemite and Tim Tams. You could go full Australian and eat Tim Tams with Vegemite, in case you're feeling especially sickening. 18. Legitimate espresso matters. You know you're not kidding about espresso when even Starbucks can't deal with it. The organization needed to close down 70% of its Australian branches back in 2008 because of rivalry from neighborhood cafes. It appears to be the Aussies truly value legitimate craftsman espresso. None of this machine-made rubbish from colossal American partnerships. They like to have a deep understanding of their espresso, from where it was created to the center name of the one who picked it. Truly, what's a cappuccino without an informed discussion with the barista? Australia has likewise been credited with imagining bunches of current espresso types, for example, the level white, the long macchiato and the short dark. These sound great, however they're fundamentally various measures of caffeine and milk with another name. 19. Regard the laborers. The Aussies truly care about their laborers' privileges, and we believe that is simply great. Just as being one of the main nations to carry out the 40-hour workweek, they likewise pay the most elevated the lowest pay permitted by law on the planet. Once burdens and the average cost for basic items are considered, individuals on the lowest pay permitted by law in Australia are acquiring USD $9.54 each hour. On top of this, charges for low-pay laborers aren't exceptionally high when you contrast in other created nations all throughout the planet. Very much done, Australia. 20. Gain proficiency with the slang. English may be the authority language of Australia, yet there's such an excess of slang that you fundamentally need to begin once more. As a dependable guideline, hack the subsequent half off any word and afterward add an O or Y toward the end. Evening becomes Arvo, rescue vehicle becomes Ambo, U-turn becomes Yui, fireman becomes Free, you get the thought. There are likewise some truly odd words to get your head around. On the off chance that something is broken, it's prickly plant, your flip-flops are called straps, and your bedsheets are called Manchester. Talk is a furphy, and a dip is a intruder. On the off chance that somebody alludes to you as a bogan, or a drongo, they're offending you. We as a whole think about a similar individual when we hear the name Kylie, however in Western Australia it signifies boomerang. As though that word wasn't adequate as of now. 21. The lager sizes are bizarre. In English bars, you request a 16 ounces and that's all there is to it. It's entirely basic. Over in Oz, there's heaps more decision on offer, contingent upon the amount you can deal with. It goes this way: pot, 285 milliliters, yacht, 450 milliliters, 16 ounces, 570 milliliters, and container, 1,140 milliliters, which is clearly for sharing. Nonetheless, it doesn't stop there. In a country as large as Australia, provincial varieties are unavoidable. For instance, in South Australia, a clipper is really called a 16 ounces, while a genuine 16 ounces is known as a royal 16 ounces. The nation over you'll discover ponies, 140 milliliters, horses, 140 milliliters, butchers, 200 milliliters, sevens, 200 milliliters, middies, 285 milliliters, schmitties, 350 milliliters, 15s, 425 milliliters, the rundown goes on for eternity. It truly is very ludicrous. You'll be satisfied to realize that there is really something many refer to as a glass, 200 milliliters. Assuming you're with an Australian companion, perhaps get them to arrange for you. 22. They truly love sport. In the event that you could gauge how much a nation loves sport, Australia would most likely be off the outline. They may even break the outline, the adoration is so solid. Cricket bats and rugby balls for all intents and purposes move through their veins. While the most famous games by match participation are AFL, rugby and cricket, the game with the most players is really football, more than 1 million players. We ought to likewise make reference to the public fixation on tennis. On top of this present, there's the powerful Melbourne Cup, a celebrated yearly pony race that is so significant everybody in Melbourne gets a public occasion. Include some seashore water sports along with everything else and you can see that Australia is the ideal spot for sport darlings, or even game likers. Simply never say that you're pulling for your group. Route signifies something different over yonder. 23. Aussie humor is quite extraordinary. Try not to stress, your new Australian work associates don't detest you. All their persistent put-downs are simply essential for what's called Aussie humor. They like to affront everybody, counting themselves, and it's all right, clearly. Australians likewise will in general track down the entertaining side of any circumstance, regardless of how disagreeable, so they can regularly appear to be very contemptuous to pariahs. Our number one illustration of Aussie humor was the point at which a man from Brisbane attempted to sell New Zealand on eBay back in 2006. The cost really rose to AUD $3,000 before eBay shut the sale. We don't know how entertaining the Kiwis discovered it, however. Ideally, we've left you feeling somewhat more educated up on Australian culture. It's unmistakably got something for everybody, except it's particularly useful for individuals who appreciate legitimate espresso, grills and free medical care. On the off chance that you haven't been put off by the jaybirds and the oppressive warmth, round out the structure at the highest point of this page to get sites from our transportation providers.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Life is Often if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.